Hello and welcome back to Old Movies Saved My Life. I'm Mel Byron and my special guest today is Emily McQuade. Hello, Emily.
Hi. How are we doing?
Well, we're doing okay. I think we have to confess to the good people that we're doing this for the second time.
Second time, yeah.
Because for some reason it didn't work the first time. So we've come back, we've eaten again, we've drunk, we've had chit-chat about life, and we have sat down once again to watch Otto Preminger's 1944 noir classic, Laura. It's quite odd because usually the whole point of this is to watch a film you've never seen before, and now you're watching a film that you saw very recently again.
Yes.
But it's good enough, right? Yeah.
It's very, very good. I mean, I'm not really in the habit of rewatching films, but in this case, I'm very, very glad that I did, because you pick up things that you haven't seen the first time. And also, you can focus on, in the case of this particular movie, how great the dialogue is, how clever the writing is, and then occasionally you get distracted by the interior design and headgear
and
choices.
the hats. And
so many hats.
So many hats. Obviously, this isn't for the benefit of people who haven't seen it. It isn't a film about hats.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Not at all. It's a film. Most people, if they know about it all, know about it as the film in which the policeman falls in love with the painting of the dead woman. I think it's fair to say she ain't dead.
Spoilers.
Spoilers alert,
no,
there are some
ain't
spoilers.
Dead.
She ain't dead, so he gets to fall in love with her in real life. But that's only after he starts investigating her murder, only to find out somebody else who got murdered instead. I think that pretty much sums up the plot. Of course, we do find out who done the murder.
Yeah.
And we meet some very interesting characters on the way, not least of whom is Waldo Lydecker, columnist and barbed wit, played by Clifton Webb, who is, I think, probably the most famous character in this film.
Yeah, and
he's rightly so.
He's absolutely wonderful, and sort of watching him for a second time, you get to kind of enjoy those barbs all over again, and then there's some that you missed the first time.
Yes. And you noticed something that obviously we hadn't noticed the first time. There's a scene with Vincent Price where Vincent Price is talking to the policeman, and just his look of disdain as he just stares. He's still and he's staring at Vincent Price's face like, I hate you. You are. He
constantly makes references to the fact that Vincent Price, who's another sort of gentleman who's after the affections of the titular Laura, he constantly makes reference to the fact that he's a prettier man. He does the same with the detective McPherson, who's like, I hope the two of you have a disgustingly earthy relationship.
That is one of the great lines, isn't it?
Yeah, but what's interesting, when he gives Vincent Price the look of disdain, it's also kind of, I don't know if it's jealousy, and it's a kind of a, I don't know if I want to have you or be you thing, or maybe it's just me sort of watching something a second time and going, yes, subtext.
Are you seeing a homosexual subtext?
I think there might be. Yeah. Well, to be fair, can I swear on this?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah. I there was a point midway through this viewing, and I was like, Vincent Price's character is involved with Laura, also with another lady
who's Laura's aunt.
With Laura's aunt, and also with another lady who is a model for the advertising agency that Laura works for. And I made a comment as to whether the other gentleman was shagging him as well.
Well, Waldo is so vain.
Yeah.
That he's the kind of person you suspect it doesn't matter as long as he's been given attention.
As long as he's being told that he's magnificent.
Yes.
Yeah.
By who? Man, woman, but he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's so into himself and wants everybody to be.
I think last time I mentioned that he was very much like Niles Crane from Frasier.
Yes, you did.
But you were sort of thinking about it now. His mannerisms and so on are very much like David Hyde Pierce as Niles. But in fact, he's kind of like both the Crane brothers together. He's got the pomposity, and he has a radio show.
Oh, that's
He's got
true.
the,
yes.
Hey, I'm listen to my beautiful tones while I tell everyone how wonderful and clever I am.
That's true. He does have an air of Frasier about him.
Yeah, he's both Frasier and Niles, considerably less pleasant than either of them. They're both popinjays, but they have good hearts. Whereas with him,
he is both popinjay and bad-hearted.
Yeah,
and he has a massive bathroom with, as you pointed out, a leopard print chair in it.
I think there's two leopard print chairs. I noticed that this time because I do have a fondness for leopard print. There is a certain part of my personal aesthetic that, as a friend of mine has put it, a bit Del Boy. was kind of going for a sort of 70s Brian Eno thing, but anyway.
But it turned out to be
a bit more Del Boy, yeah. Or Joan Rivers, I've heard as well. But okay, I'll take either of those. That's fine. Yeah, there's a lot of interior. There's a lot of hat porn in this film. We were playing Spot the Biggest Hats.
Yes, and we played this last time, but it was fun to do it again.
But they're bigger, the hats.
Yeah,
they're not bigger this time. Hats do not increase with every single view. If I watch it a third time and they're even bigger,
then that would be quite spooky. Maybe we should come back in about 3 weeks' time and see if the hats have grown in diameter.
Well, there's one scene in the advertising agency when is it Otto? Isn't it? Waldo
Lydecker, yeah.
I'm tired and I've had a lot of quiche.
And some Prosecco this time.
And some Prosecco, yeah. Which isn't, I have to point out, is not Mel's fault.
No.
It's clearly not mine either, I have no.
No, we were plied with Prosecco. Well, Emily was plied with Prosecco by my husband as a thank you. So there you go.
Oh, well, yeah.
It was a gift.
I earned that Prosecco.
You earned every inch of that Prosecco.
It makes me talk bollocks. Then, actually, no.
Keep it going. We love it.
Yeah, so... Waldo goes to visit Laura at the agency where she works, which is interesting for two reasons. First of all, there's a scene, presumably they're models waiting to be auditioned. Mm-hmm. The glamorous ladies in the waiting area, there's a lot of big hats, one of which, as I pointed out, was big enough to let a kitten run around on. Later on, in another scene later on in the movie, we see somebody with one that's big enough to pick up Al Jazeera.
That's in Laura's apartment.
Full satellite dish.
That was one heck of a hat. I have to say, as far as hats go, I think the 1940s is the decade
it was definitely a good decade for hats.
For general circumference of hats.
Yeah, well, I mean, the bigger one, I said about that one with the kitten, you could probably let, I don't know, a few rabbits and maybe a Shetland pony on top of one of them.
Oh, but they are beautiful.
They are.
I wish I could carry them off. I think you have to walk with a certain. Yeah.
It depends on what you're wearing as well. Much as I like the idea of spending a fortune on this enormous hat and then just wearing it with my dressing gown and pajamas while I work from home.
That feels like it's not giving the hat a chance to breathe.
No,
really.
But I'd know it was there. That's the important
which
thing,
is obviously the key thing.
What was I going to say? Yeah, is it another thing you pick up on a second viewing with this movie is that the character of Laura is she's a career woman. She's working her way up the ranks in what she does at the advertising agency. It's the artwork that I think she's responsible for, at least at the start, and then she kind of works her way through.
And then the next time we see her sitting at a very big desk with clearly a secretary standing.
Yeah, she's got her own secretary.
But then the thing I hadn't noticed before was when Waldo explains that, it was the day before her 22nd birthday, then goes back in time to when he met her, and you're thinking, wait a minute, she has gone through to these glittering heights by the age of 22, in no time at all, but by the age of 22.
And she's being pursued by, how old is Waldo meant to be?
Oh, in his 40s.
Oh, yeah, I reckon so. It's difficult to tell.
I think the actor Clifton Webb was in his 50s.
Yeah, it's a sort of playing age thing, isn't it?
Yes, and people tend to be always a bit younger. So I think Waldo's definitely in his 40s, and she's 22.
Yeah, though it's interesting when he goes to visit her at work, because as I said at the time, it was a little bit like being at school and somebody announcing there was a dog on the playground. And he comes into the office, and the office is full of women, and there's like one young boy who's working behind the desk. And they see that he's there, and they're like, oh, she's got a gentleman caller. And they're all like, no one's getting any work done.
No,
the woman that sits in the desk directly behind the sort of background artist there, she's just kind of like doing the whole, hey, look what's going on, the sort of unsubtle grin that people do when they suspect there's gossip to be had.
The nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah, and then eventually the boy who's working on reception joins in and gets it wrong. Yeah. And he's sort of 2 millimetres away from Waldo's face.
He's getting closer.
And he gets to be on the receiving end of a barbed comment, doesn't he?
Yes.
Get any closer, I shall crack your skull with my cane or something.
But everybody, I think, at some point comes in for a Waldo barb.
Yeah, Vincent Price. We should talk about Vincent Price. But there's a point where he said, because Price plays this sort of gigolo type young man who's you get the feeling he's quite decent and he's very charming, but he's also been involved in some slightly dodgy stuff.
Yes, which of course Waldo knows all about because he set private detectives on to finding out about it.
And he's done that with other gentlemen. Jacoby
the painter.
Jacoby the painter that painted this beautiful picture of Laura. And then he the next time you see Waldo and Laura together, I sent my man after Jacoby, and she gives her the newspaper and doesn't actually explain what he uncovered. So I was wondering, me being extremely immature, that maybe he discovered the story was like, Painter has shockingly small penis.
I think
he's not packing much of a brush.
I think it is more likely that he's right. He is a rubbish painter with no technique, and which will have killed his career.
And he's got a small penis.
So, ladies, this is not
ladies and gentlemen,
not a painter for you.
He is painting with inferior tools,
so to speak.
One inferior tool.
Oh, madam.
Yeah. Anyway,
he's such a creep, Waldo. There's that bit early on when he discovers Jacoby at her apartment where he says, "Oh, and I just went out for a walk, and it's pouring with snow, and I went out for a walk, and I found myself in front of Laura's apartment."
Yeah, you found
really,
yourself.
you accidentally ended up outside her apartment. That's really
that's only kind of a step down from, and then I somehow accidentally ended up in your house.
Yes.
I don't know how it happened. One minute I was in the street, the next minute I was in your bin. Yes. Rifling through your discarded stockings.
Yes. And your mail. Oh, creepy man. Creepy man.
Yeah.
And you could see how, even though Laura seems to be quite in control of her life.
Well, yeah, she does.
She does. How her head would be turned by this older man who's very famous taking an interest in
and
her.
she goes to him initially to ask him to endorse an advertising campaign for a pen, and he's very much kind of like, no, I use a typewriter, which, as we see a couple of times in the film, he does in the bath.
Yes, he does.
In his ridiculously outre bath.
Yes.
He sits there in the bath receiving visitors.
Yes, whilst he types.
Yeah.
But doesn't he say so? He says, "I write in a goose quill dipped in venom."
That's right.
Is what he tells her.
Yeah.
So she's immediately on the receiving end of one of his barbs.
Yeah.
I like the idea of writing in a goose quill dipped in venom. I wonder if it would make for better comedy. If we
certainly more cutting. I mean, there's a lot of Waldo's one-liners. I mean, you probably go to IMDb, I would suggest, because I won't be able to remember all of them.
Yeah.
But where he's at a party and he decides he wants to leave, and it's something like, "If you don't take me away from here this instant, I shall run amok." Which,
yes.
As someone who myself suffers from social anxiety, that I'm going to be using that one.
The thing is, Waldo's not suffering from social anxiety.
No,
he's just bored with these terrible people.
Isn't Price's character there? I've forgotten what his name is.
Shelby Carpenter.
Yeah, Mr. Carpenter is there being charming, and he's just like
charming but vacuous.
Yeah, vacuous, but you get all the women like him. Like, you get the feeling that
he's very beautiful and decorative, and which I know we're talking about Vincent Price here, the king of horror.
And it's very interesting because, I mean, one of the reasons why I sort of was interested in this film is A, I like film noir, and B, I love Vincent Price. And it's very interesting to see him as a young man and as part of an ensemble cast, because normally he's such a big kind of cartoony figure, and in this, I think he plays well as part of the ensemble. He's very tall, as in you realise that even with the other men, he's literally like a good head and a bit taller than
certainly taller than Clifton Webb. So that when Waldo's directing Barbs, they have to go up.
It's interesting to see him, and also he does have his character's meant to be from the south. Carpenter, and there's a bit of accent slippage going on, and I wondered if that may have been a deliberate choice, because if you've got this guy who's a bit of a phony, and he's charming, but he's the kind of person that if you'd met him in, not that I'm projecting here, a dodgy club in the 1990s, would have given you a made-up phone number after snogging you, possibly to the soundtrack of I don't know, Born Slippy by Underworld.
Okay, so anyway. Now we know how you spent your 90s, Emily.
It was mostly crying in corners, but
Moving on.
But anyway, or he might give you the correct number, and then he might be, "Can I borrow 50 quid?" And you'd never.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely a borrowing 50 quid, and we learned that right at the beginning, where the detective goes through all the money that Laura's aunt has withdrawn from her bank account. Oh, well, I just wanted him to go shopping for me.
Yeah,
really, because she is just besotted with him.
Yeah,
I mean,
the relationship between him and the aunt's quite interesting, though. Because they're both dysfunctional, but she's very much of the opinion that they can make things work. She's
in many ways needier than him, because you feel he would flit about from woman to woman as long as there's somebody.
But with her, he would get a constant one, because at least she knows what he's like.
And she says that to Laura, doesn't
Yeah.
she? So she says, look, you know, I know what he's like.
Which
and-
is a
and
little bit like you occasionally, without meaning to stereotype, you do get women that will excuse all kinds of bizarre behaviour. I remember somebody I used to work with once going, "Oh, bless him, we had to go to the hospital at the weekend because he nailed his hand to the table again."
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
At least all Vincent Price would do would be kind of like take a gift from you and then pawn it, or...
As indeed he does with
does,
the cigarette
yeah.
case, yeah, which is pretty mean.
It is, well, he actually gives it to another woman who pawns it.
So whether he did it for the money for her, money for him, but I suspect he did it to get the money for him.
Yeah, I would have thought
Gave
so.
her a cut.
Yes.
Well, he did take her drinking whiskey in Laura's apartment.
Oh
as
yeah,
we
yeah. You discover that they sort of we were just talking, and he's bought like the cheapest whiskey. So you have McPherson, the detective, going, well, a lady like Laura, who he's not met. He thinks he's dead. And he's in love with her painting, which is fine. Well, it's not, but which is weird because he seems very level-headed. The detective. He's a man who's seen some stuff. He's got he's got a shin bone full of silver, as Waldo keeps saying. But yeah, he does sort of fall in love with Laura before realising that she's still alive and before meeting her. But he says something like, a lady like her would never drink this sort of... Isn't he called like Old Pony or something? It's just like, yeah, you wouldn't actually get a Scotch whiskey in Scotland called that.
Only in America.
Yeah. No, you may as well just call it crap whiskey, because that's what it is, pony and trap.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah.
I don't think Otto Preminger was probably aware of rhyming slang.
No, or maybe sort of inadvertently that's what happened. Maybe somebody that was involved in the script was, and they were like,
I did it as a laugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's put these drinks in.
So yeah, the Carpenters had the other lady round at Laura's apartment just to talk. But they have been drinking crap whiskey.
And she was apparently wearing Laura's negligee.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's. I mean, it's already cheeky, but that's really fucking.
I'll just
rude.
put on the talking
sort of
negligee.
like- yeah. And we're talking negligee. Well, as we've established in an earlier scene, Waldo has a salad tossing jacket.
Yeah, and
Not a
actually,
euphemism.
no euphemism. He's actually making salads
In a tartan jacket, and later on he's wearing a tie that's sort of like a Burberry print. It's sort of
Yes. And it might be because the Burberry print, I think, goes back a number of decades.
but that's got very different associations now.
Yes, than it had in 1944.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. No, the clothes are not... I like the clothes in this film. I like Jean Tierney's clothes are quite understated.
They are,
and
yeah.
They're very chic, but clearly very expensive.
And they've got a lot of kind of clear lines, a lot of things that are really simple that you need to be of a certain dimension to get away with.
Like very, very...
Very, very skinny and petite, basically.
Which
otherwise
she
you'd have-
clearly was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, which most normal ladies wouldn't look so good in. So I think the clothes are very, very nice in their understatedness, and all these fancy hats, as we've mentioned before, all these fancy hats. She doesn't wear any of them.
She's got like a floppy hat, which again looks like something from... Anyone who remembers the 90s sitcom Blossom? It's a Blossom hat, but in the 1940s. Except hers isn't made out of denim, so it's a little bit better. But it's not an easy look to pull off. Let's put it that way.
It's not a chic hat by any means.
No,
all
but
the chicness is left to the ladies around her.
Yeah, but Jean Tierney does look really chic, despite
because
having
she's
the ridiculous
beautiful.
hat, because she's beautiful.
She's beautiful.
But generally speaking, her wardrobe is really nice. I noticed the men's fashions more this time too. So McPherson, the detective, has like kind of a strong fedora game, and it's such a shame that fedoras these days kind of have associations of sort of creepy sexist arseholes. Because it's a classic film noir fedora is over his face, and he's got like the shadow that kind of comes under his eyes. And then with the other men, you've got Carpenter is in a double-breasted suit, which I think that's a difficult one to pull off, unless, well, because Vincent Price is so tall. I suppose it's quite useful in a way, but it's quite a difficult one to pull off because if you're quite a big guy, it can make you look bigger. So he then must have been kind of like sort of rectangular shaped. So his suit is kind of, it's a little bit spivvy, I suppose, but it's quite stylish.
Waldo, of course, has numerous costume changes.
He
all
does,
of them
and everything
beautifully
seems to be
tailored.
very, very heavy tweed.
Yes,
So he must have been really sweaty.
Yeah.
He might explain for why he has all the baths.
Oh God, yes. They might say, "Oh, can I have another bath scene, please?"
Yeah,
Just so
exactly.
I don't have to wear any clothes here.
Yeah.
But I didn't notice that Mark's, the detective, his suit is clearly not beautifully tailored.
No,
His
it's not. But it's an imposing hat. He's
yes,
got going on.
that the hat's.
He does have some bad high trousers at one point. Like, there's that stereotype of old men that wear high trousers, and I think this must have been when it started, the sort of the 40s, and it doesn't look good on a handsome young man.
No,
never mind on your sort of granddad.
But that was the look.
That was the
40s high.
Yeah,
high
sort of like where's your waistband underneath your nipples? Clearly.
Yeah. Yes, and then they would wear those waistcoats that met the trousers, so that it looked like it was almost like a onesie.
Oh, it's sort of the man's equivalent of sort of like a play suit or a jumpsuit.
And then the double-breasted jacket over the top. I have to say I'm not fond of men's suits from that era. They seem awkward and cumbersome, I think, and the braces and all this, and they just seem awkward and cumbersome, and the trousers are too wide. Listen to us being right bitchy about men's fashions of the 1940s.
I quite like the braces, but again, those you have to know exactly what you're doing.
It's not a look everyone can pull off.
No, though apparently there are actually these days. I know this because I'm talking to someone at the other. I haven't been googling braces, honest. There are websites devoted to braces, so they are a very, very specific, very kind of niche thing.
Websites devoted to both, like bracelovers.com.
Yeah, or as in, this is my collection of braces, and this is why I wear these with this one particular type of trouser. You've got to be really committed to sort of dandyism, I suppose, to kind of write a whole website.
To generate content for a website solely devoted to men's braces.
Yeah.
That is a labour of love.
It is. So if you're a fan of braces as well as big ladies' hats, and who isn't?
Who isn't?
It's definitely one to check out.
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting from a sort of film noir perspective as well, because it kind of plays around with your expectations, aside from the who's good and who, well, good, you know what I mean. Who's someone who's got moral integrity and who's actually a bit of, as they say in The Lady Vanishes, a bit of a stinker. And in fact, there are some people who are, well, not amoral, but a little bit dodgy, like Carpenter and like, I suppose like the aunt in a way.
She knows that Carpenter's no good.
Yeah.
And she knows that he loves Laura, but she's still prepared to snatch him away. As she says at the cocktail party, come away with me, come away with me. Yeah, we could go away and we'll forget all about this. So she's fairly amoral. I mean, Waldo is just... Yeah. He's just out and out horrible, I think. And then you've got Mark, the detective, who's somewhat hard-bitten, but it seems to be the nicest of them all, really.
Yeah, and he's very interesting because he's got that little game that he plays, the little... game with the ball bearings in.
Do you remember those? We used to have those when I was a kid. Yeah. The idea was to get the ball bearing in each and every hole, but you couldn't do it without tipping it, and then the ball bearings would fall out of the ones. I don't think I've ever completed one. Yeah, they're difficult. But
the fact that he keeps bringing this out and playing with it, usually it's sort of awkward moments.
And he does tell Waldo at some point that it calms him down.
Yeah, it's like a fidget spinner or like doing a puzzle or something. I thought that was an interesting sort of character trope, and that's the sort of thing that you wouldn't expect to see a hard-bitten detective, and you wouldn't expect the heroine who may or may not have been murdered to turn out to not actually be a helpless victim.
Not
and to be somebody who's my mother said I should always be focused on my career kind of thing, and she's obviously doing all right because she's got a massive house in Manhattan, I think. And then she's got a place in the country, so presumably upstate New York.
Yes, that's the cottage that she refers
which is presumably not, which looks like it isn't that small either.
Yeah. So she's doing all right for herself for a young woman of 22.
Yeah, who's 22, even though she has got to got to deal with a man nearer to her own age who's a rotter, and then a man who's considerably older who's stalky.
Yeah.
Also, God knows what that painter was up to.
Well, he was painting that rather lovely painting. That
but you know.
Yes. So I enjoyed this one. I mean, it's hard to watch a film, you know, a couple of weeks apart and still get something out of it. But I enjoyed it the second time round. I mean, I've seen it several times already. For you, it was the second time, but I hadn't seen it for a long time.
Very, very good.
So, are we recommending it to the good ladies and gentlemen?
Absolutely.
I think we are.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's one to watch if you're a fan of sort of crime stuff, but also if you're a fan of good writing or if you're a fan of comedy, because it is really, really funny.
There's some really good wit in there,
yes,
isn't there? There's
absolutely.
Really good wit. And not forgetting if you're a fan of very large circumferenced ladies' hats.
Large hats and men's braces.
And men's braces.
Yeah.
So that is...
And leopard print.
Oh, and leopard print chairs in your cavernous bathroom.
Yeah.
Because we all, every one of us in London has a cavernous bathroom.
I have 5. Sort of...
No other rooms but 5 cavernous bathrooms.
Yeah, I live in a bath, ladies and gentlemen.
Like Waldo Lie, she's a latter-day Waldo Lydecker.
Oh, finally.
So
well, apart from, anyway, yeah. I'm less stalky.
Less stalky than Waldo. That's not really a recommendation.
That's going on
as a friend, is it?
No.
That's not going on your
That's
poster.
going on business cards.
Yeah. Talking of business, Emily, what are you up to? So before we sign off, what are you up to comedically?
Well, I've got quite a number of different gigs coming up, but I'm also doing a 3-hander show at Camden and at Brighton Fringes with my good friends Phil Green and David Ferguson, called Lone Wolf McQuade and Friends. I'd like to point out that the name was not chosen by me, and also Lone Wolf McQuade, if anyone's interested, is a Chuck Norris film which I haven't seen but has a fantastic poster. And as I point out in the show, I'm not so much a lone wolf as a scabby fox. So, come and watch me be a scabby fox if you want.
Chuck Norris's oeuvre, not really an oeuvre that we're concerned with in this podcast.
This might, but I think I'm guessing probably the first mention of Chuck Norris.
In the many episodes we've done, definitely.
What happens if you get someone that only wants to watch Chuck Norris films, though?
Well, I guess at a certain point down the line, when I've done a few episodes of these, I ought to perhaps do a sort of return match with people where they do the same to me. They choose a film for me.
Yeah.
But if that film has Chuck Norris in it, maybe that episode will never see the light of day.
I promise I will not make you watch a Chuck Norris film.
Thank you, Emily. That's my good friend Emily McQuade, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the sign of true friendship.
Yes, please don't make me watch Chuck Norris.
No, there was just as a small aside, and feel free to cut this out. So just me going off on one. A friend of a friend, her favourite film was the notorious 1985-86 flop Howard the Duck. The way that my friend used to describe it, it was kind of almost like, yeah, but she's going to make us watch Howard the Duck again. Like, she would lock all the doors and windows and go, we are watching Howard the Duck.
Oh my God. That is torture. Yeah. That's not friendship.
No, it's not. Well, sometimes it's interesting to find out what people's favourite film is, and some people it's Howard the Duck.
Oh well, Emily's ex-friend's famous film is Howard the Duck. So thank you very much, Emily, for coming back.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thank you to you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening once again to Old Movies Saved My Life. My name's Mel Byron, and my show is on its way to you soon. It'll also be at the Edinburgh Fringe and around and about beforehand, but I shall be telling people via my Twitter account where that will be, at the Mel Byron. So until the next time, it's thanks from me and thanks from Emily McQuade.
Thank you.
And we'll be back soon.